But I think the consensus top interior guy for most people is Tyler Booker from Alabama, who I think I have at number 7 on my list. You have at number 7 as well. Tell me more about Tyler Booker. Why are people so high on him? Why could he be a top 25 pick in the draft?
I've been back and forth on Booker and Jackson as the top interior guy for me. It's just the combine is concerning, and I'm not usually one to take too many reactions out of the combine, but he tested near the bottom in just about everything you could test in over there. And look, it's weird with Booker because watching all 3 years of his tape, I kind of liked his 2022 tape from his freshman year better than the last 2 years. And in pass protection, look, there's no question. He's strong, he's balanced. He is certainly strong enough to play in the NFL. That's without question. But I thought he moved better earlier in his career and was more scheme versatile earlier in his career with his footwork, and it kind of got slower and slower and slower. And then you think about, okay, we've seen a bunch of huge Alabama offensive linemen in the past, right? Alex Leatherwood and J.C. Latham, and we're going to see Jaden Roberts next year too. I mean, we've seen these big Alabama offensive linemen.
Proctor, yeah.
Caden Proctor is another one next year we'll talk about, but sometimes they have a hard time moving, right?
Yeah.
And I think with Booker, it's become the same way. And the concerning part is, okay, so maybe we expected, all right, he's going to check into the combine at 340 or 350, checked in at 321. He's not the heaviest guy in the world, right, compared to even some of these other offensive tackles we have in the class, and he still really struggled to move. So I think there's an issue for me. He can pass protect. I don't think there's no question about that. He can pass protect inside. He's strong enough to do it. There's not a whole lot of flaws when it comes to his pass protecting technique, but I just don't feel like his first step, first of all, is slow for me. Especially slower than what I'd seen him do back a couple of years ago in his freshman year when he was moving really well in the zone schemes and getting out in space. It felt like his feet slowed down as time went on, and then it makes him just less scheme versatile. Now, we think about, okay, we've talked about a bunch of zone linemen so far. Now I think about, okay, who could maybe use him to get downhill? Is it the Cincinnati Bengals? Is it maybe the Houston Texans? Is it I'm trying to think of another one. Even I don't think a team like the Bears, even if they were still hurting for guards, would take him, especially not at 10 overall like some were mocking, because it just doesn't fit. The movement skills don't fit. I don't think he's a fit for, say, the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think that's a fit, the way he's moved the last year and a half, 2 years.
I've seen like
tape.
Miami or Miami at the top of the draft, San Francisco at the top. It's not going to fit.
It helps your pass protection, but then what are you suffering in the run game? Because his run blocking grades are not great, which is weird for a guy who's so strong at 6'4", 6'5", and 321. So I'm in between on him. Me personally, I think he's an early second-round pick, maybe in the right scheme fit. Maybe even, let's say, the Baltimore Ravens, right, at 20, I think they're picking 27 to replace Patrick McCarry at left guard. That makes sense to me. The Eagles, we've talked about at 32, they run inside zone. It's more downhill, but it would be an easy replacement for a guy like Mekhi Becton, who I think has kind of become a similar sort of player, right? Moved inside to guard, and his feet are a little heavier than they used to be because of all the knee problems. But that's what I think is it has to be the right fit if you're going to take him late in the first round. Otherwise, if you're taking him just for the pass protection ability, I think he's a second-round pick. He's a good player. He's going to be a starter. It's just going to be the question of how much you get out of him as far as being two-dimensional.
Yeah, I wouldn't take this guy in the first round either. I'm a little bit lower on Tyler Booker. I think, like I said, he's more of a second-round type of prospect for me. And to me, it kind of reminded me of like when I was watching Holland Pierce. Like he's like the Holland Pierce of offensive guards almost, where he is a massive player, 6'5", 321, 34-inch arms. That is 89th percentile for guards as well. 11-inch hands are 97th percentile for guards as well. So he's a guy, especially in pass protection, like you mentioned, he just gets his hands on you and you're not going anywhere, right? Because the grip strength he has, the massive hands and the long arms, 85 career pass blocking grade, 78 career pass blocking grade on true passes. You cannot bull rush this guy. You can't. He has an excellent anchor, good technique, high IQ player. I think he recognizes stunts and blitzes really well as well. Strength to displace defenders in the run game at times. And also, I've heard nothing but amazing comments about his character at Alabama as well. He's one of the hardest workers I've heard in that locker room. Now, I mentioned before, below average athlete. His 10-yard split was 1.96 seconds. That is tied for the third slowest ever by a guard. Broad jump, 7 feet 10 inches, 14th percentile. Bench press, 21 reps, 18th percentile. Now, we mentioned before how strong he is, but he has longer arms, so it obviously is a little bit harder to get his arms up and down, whereas a guy with shorter arms is a little bit easier to do that. So he's still a strong player, but that 21 bench press reps was a little concerning, or at least eye-opening a little bit. And like I said, he's scheme dependent. I think he can only work in a gap-heavy scheme. So there are going to be a lot of teams that need interior O-linemen. They're not even going to have Tyler Booker on the board because they were like, he doesn't fit our scheme at all. And I think he has some balance issues that you see at times as well. So certainly not for everyone, but if you run a gap-heavy scheme, you're going to like him a lot as a powerful guard who has been an excellent pass blocker throughout his career. But like I said, with Holland Pierce as well, he's a very scheme-dependent player, but he could be a very good player if you employ that scheme.
It's where you get the lines blurred in a ranking like this, where you're looking for certain type of players, right? Because obviously every player has their strengths and their flaws. But let's say like for me, I have Tyler Booker 7 and Gray Zabel at 8, right? But if I'm Minnesota picking at 24, I'm taking Zabel over Booker, right? These are the little things. This is how tightly packed these rankings can get. It also depends on the type of player you're looking for, right? If I'm sitting here going, okay, the Cincinnati Bengals took Gray Zabel, I don't feel as great about that with them trying to get downhill the way that they do, right? Just as an example. So it really does. It blurs the lines. It depends what you're looking for. Even depending on the system fit, you might want Booker over even Donovan Jackson. That's again, we're talking about a very different set of players, right? You have to evaluate Booker a little bit differently than you would Zabel, or even, somebody say, like I mentioned Ozzie Trapilo before, and you go, okay, where does he fit best? And it stresses the importance of how much so few guys in every draft class are at the very top of all 32 teams lists, right? And I mean, that's where you get the elite players that are taken in the top 20, right? They're scheme proof and they're team proof and they can go anywhere and they'll be great. You think about, say, like Penei Sewell, right? Could have gone to any of the 32 teams. He'd have been great.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter, right? It happens that he went to the Lions and he became great anyway. But I think that's where you get into, especially when you talk about second-round linemen, the fit is so big, and it's going to be huge for Booker.
Just to kind of spoil some of the plans here at PFF, along with Trevor Sycamore, we're going to be doing team-specific big boards as well. So if you're a team that uses a very specific scheme, there are going to be players that you're just not going to be interested in the NFL draft. So obviously, these rankings are good just for broad scope, like who are the best O-linemen in our opinion. But later on, hopefully in April, I think, Dawn, and then we're going to be doing, top 100 for every team?
I think we're going to try to, and that's the most fascinating part of all of it to me. Even when you hear all the rumors and speculation at the Combine is, okay, what are these 32 teams actually thinking on the inside, right? That's why, it was almost fascinating to watch, like the Giants Hard Knocks last year when it was like, okay, what are they thinking within this process? Or even the quarterbacks, what do they think about which quarterbacks they actually like better and fit their system better? So it's something always to take into account once you actually get to draft night is, okay, where does he land and why does that make sense? And in doing just in a vacuum rankings, it's actually hard. To me, it makes it harder to do, right? Especially with the back end of this list where I'm like, well, I'd like this one better here and that one better there, and it would fit. It would all, and then it's just to do it in a vacuum. It's tough. It really is.
So I'm excited for those teams, specifically big boards. That'll be, I think, a lot more context. That'd be good for because I think there's some people who might be a fan of a team that drafts a player that on the big board is lower than another player, but you're like, oh, wait, he actually fits your team better. That's why you draft him.
Guess what? We're here to tell you all why. So
I'm excited to do that. So that'll be really fun. Hopefully, get that done in April, and we'll, of course, have it for the NFL draft and the live draft show. Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.